let's start with us, with our lives. We just heard the previous speaker talk about what's happened to our lifespans, that in 1900, average lifespan was 30 years. And the great thing is that has gone completely exponential. It's really good news because we're living really long lives now. And I don't know if you saw last week in the media, but of course there's been a certain breakthrough in that the dictators believe that we can just transplant ourselves into infinitely long lives. I saw this and thought, that's an interesting approach, but you can't transplant a brain. All right, so what do I mean when I say that lifespan has gone exponential? Well, my grandparents were basically almost all gone by age 65. My parents made it to around 80 years old. Everyone in this room who is under 65 and makes it to 65 without any sort of major chronic illness has a better than 50% chance of making it to 90 and beyond. And if you're 50 years old, the chances you're going to make it to 95. That is brand new. It is unprecedented. It essentially doubles the number of adult years that we have to live, which is absolutely fantastic. But there is some bad news in this story. There's a new term that's being thrown around called health span. We know what lifespan is. That's the number of years you live. Health span is the number of years that you're well. And a big report was published in December which detailed this worldwide. The first thing that it looked at was, okay, if we're going to say the average human lifespan is going to come to around 95 years for most people, in the United States, that bastion of health, it turns out that you have 13 years of gap between your health span and your lifespan. So you're living 13 years in ill health. And of course you think, well, New Zealand, Australia, we're all very healthy here. It turns out we're number 2 and 3 on that list. And so in fact, in Australia and New Zealand, we have 12 years of ill health at the end of life. And that sucks because it's uncomfortable, it's expensive. Who wants to live that way? And this is the question that's being posed now by our exponential new lifespan. Fortunately, there are 3 very simple things that we can do to extend our health span. What are those 3 things? Well, we need to stay active, we need to stay connected, and we need to stay contributing. Turns out there are some through lines today from what you're hearing from the various speakers. But I want to unroll these and put these in context for us. Let's start with activity. Of course, we know that we need to stay physically active. We know that. We know that we can't just sit. A weird thing is, up until, I don't know, 50 years ago, it was sort of believed that people needed to slow down as they aged. Oh, you know, you've only got so much energy, you should really take it easy. I have some bad news for you, sunshine. The thing that we know now is that the older you get, the harder you have to work. You have to get out there and push yourself every single day. That's the deal. If you do that, the reward is that you will be able to enjoy those years. But you have to work hard. But it's more than just the body. Active actually means taking a look inside and asking yourself what moves you. Yes, what moves your body, but what moves your mind? What moves your soul? Because if you can answer those questions, then you will always find the motivation to stay active, to be active, to continue being active for all of your lifespan. All right, that's activity. Now let's take a look at connecting. So connecting is probably the great overlooked element in our health spans. We spend our early lives connecting with lots and lots and lots of people. We have lots of friends. We make them in school. We make them in uni. And then our lives fall into a particular pattern where we organize our connections around our families and probably around our workplaces. And then the kids grow up and they leave, and then particularly in the case of men, we retire, and all of a sudden, all of those connections that we've invested our lives in start to fade away. And it kills us. In fact, to be well, we need to be connecting all of the time, not just with the people we're already connected with, but reaching out and making new connections. And before you think, oh, well, I'll just go spend some time on the Facebook, the data's in on this. Physical connections are infinitely better than virtual connections. The only thing that you can say about a virtual connection is that it's better than nothing. But really, we have to reach out and make physical connections between people. And we need to do this continuously for all of our lives. Now, to bring that to this room right now, which is something we're doing today, just for a moment, take a look around this room. This room is a room of your peers. This room is a room of like-minded people. This room is the best opportunity you'll get this week, this month, maybe this year, to reach out and connect with people. And because we have these massive breaks all during the day, you have all of the opportunity that you need to be able to reach out and connect. We need to start thinking like this, that every opportunity we can make new connections, not just because it's fun, but because those connections keep us alive. And then finally, we need to contribute, and we need to contribute all of our lives. We just heard a story about how a grandfather came back to a village and continued to contribute what he was giving to make that village a better place. Now, something that we've heard all of our lives, because it's true morally, is that to give is better than to receive. And while it is true morally, it turns out it's also true with respect to our health and well-being. For us to give is better for us than it is to receive. And so we need to be thinking in those terms. And another bit of bad news. As you grow older, of course, you have more experience to share. You have more to offer. So, of course, the older you get, the more you have to share, the more you have to give. But let me read this to you another way. The older you get, the more you have to give, because that giving keeps you young. All right, so to recap, in order to have a wonderful health span, we need to stay active in body, mind, and soul. We need to connect and continue connecting and refuse to accept that those connections will ever wind down. And we need to contribute, and the older we are, the more we have to contribute. And the way this day is structured, there are incredible opportunities to do each of these. Okay, so that's us and our lives. Let's take a look at what's happening to work.